Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Cosmic Besties. As you know, this is your go-to space for all things spiritual and woo-woo. And our goal is to help you feel a little less alone if this is your spiritual awakening journey, so that it just feels like hanging out with some of your best girlfriends. So I'm here with Christy, and we are going to talk today about a really important topic. And that is debunking some of the mystery around some of these topics. I think we've both had experiences over the years where we've encountered people who feel like, Reiki or tarot or human design or any of these newer concepts or practices are bad or in some cases the devil's work or fill in the
Mhm.
blank negative connotation as described by very judgmental people. And we want to just clear it up with sharing a little bit of the history and a little bit of our own journeys and understanding how to bridge together some of the different schools of thought. Christy and I were both raised in religious families, or in a religion, I should say, and we've both sort of come down this path where we've moved towards spirituality and almost what I'd call, like, at least for me, and I won't speak for Christy, but omnism. Omnism for me is where, like, I don't necessarily think any one person's view is wrong, but I believe that all have pieces that are right and everything fits together. But I
Mm.
know, Christy, you're feeling really passionate about this topic in the moment. So tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so I broached this topic idea with Kelly because it has come up repeatedly in the last week or so with just people I'm running into. It has been something I haven't had to deal with for a really long time. Initially, I stopped giving readings like way back when because I had a negative experience where somebody called me a witch, but in like a very derogatory kind of way. Whereas now I'm like, that would be like, I'd be so honored. Like, thank you. Like, not like like just meaning that like I'm someone who's a little bit more spiritual and a little bit open to that kind of stuff. Like, I don't think that's a negative thing. But what I have recently kind of come, or guess I had experiences with are people who are kind of afraid to do Reiki with me or afraid to receive readings because they think that it's like channeling the devil or that it's like kind of that evil work. And I think there's a really big misconception behind a lot of the things that we do, like Reiki and channeling and oracle cards or tarot cards. Because there's really nothing negative about it at all. It's a very high vibrational frequency energy surrounding everything that we do. And it's honestly like a little like I try not to get to take it personally. Um, I was raised Catholic, though I don't really agree with a lot of what the Catholic Church teaches nowadays. But I feel very, very close to Jesus. And anytime I do a Reiki session, I call in Jesus and Mary Magdalene and my angels. Um, I feel super close to all of them. And I had a woman recently who she was listening to like what I do for a living. And I could tell like as I was explaining what I do, like she was getting quieter and quieter and quieter. She's probably like reaching for her like, oh, like holy water or something to like sage me with it. But so I stopped and I said, "Oh, like do you believe in like the things that I'm talking about?" And her response was, "No, I'm Christian." And I was like, "Well, I believe in Jesus. Like I still pray. Like I still have a very strong connection to my faith." But I just was like I was taken aback that the idea of somebody doing Reiki to help facilitate healing in somebody else or somebody channeling messages from a past loved one could be seen as not Christian when there's so many instances in the Bibles of like you can even think of Reiki as being similar to the Holy Spirit, right? Like it's coming through you and it's this higher vibrational frequency. Or like the laying of the hands or anointing the sick, or even just like putting your hands on somebody when you're praying over them. Um, how is that any different than somebody who's channeling the highest frequency of love through them in order to facilitate somebody else feeling better in that moment? It's intentional, which I guess you could kind of say is like a prayer. And um, if Reiki is the highest form of light and love, which I believe it is, who else is the highest form of light and love? God. So where is Reiki coming from? It's coming from that source energy. Um, so how could that ever be negative? I don't know. I feel very passionately about this.
As you should, as you should. I mean, I've also had a similar journey. So I was raised Catholic, but from a very young age, I found myself really questioning things. I remember little things like in first grade, I was at a Catholic school and the nuns would smack people on the hands for talking, or I watched another nun pull two boys by their ears to the principal's office. And those were little things that even at age 5 or 6, I questioned. I didn't understand how that was being kind because it wasn't. Um, and little things like that became paper cuts over the years, including things that as I was older, I understood were done by, different people in the church, that, I couldn't stand behind. And so, like, all these little paper cuts definitely made me question. I also saw really good humans out there who were practicing other religions, who were practicing no religions. My grandmother was able to practice Catholicism and still believe in and do tarot. And so it just made me question a lot. And I began to realize that, well, if God creates all of us to be able to question, then maybe that's our job. Maybe our path, each individual's path, is about discovering our own unique relationship with God. And that can look like a million different paths, right? No two individuals' pathways are probably the same. Um, I also loved like really just tying together science and spirituality. I was originally pre-med and I went to a Catholic university, and I remember saying to myself, well, if this Catholic university can also practice science and do stem cell research, then I sure as heck can find a way to marry together all these things in my brain.
Mhm.
And one of the things you mentioned, Christy, about Reiki, like it's Reiki is all about like spiritual energy. So Reiki
Mhm.
stands for in Japanese Rei, which is spirit, and Ki, which is energy. So it's supposed to be the universal life force energy. And I think
Mhm.
you're right. I think like the examples that you see in different religious texts, whether that's the Bible or any other religious book, you see examples of people healing others, and you see examples of um this spiritual energy. And I just think that there's so much that people don't know, but unfortunately they're reacting out of a place of fear instead of out of a place of curiosity.
Yeah. Um, Absolutely. I think for me, like it's always a little bit difficult for me to wrap my mind around it. And I have to just tell myself, like, everybody's in their own place on their spiritual journey. And um, somebody's experience may be different from mine, and that's okay because we're, like you said, we're meant to have our own experience and to forge that very personal relationship with the universe, creator, God, whomever it is that you believe, if you believe in a higher power. But I think what's tricky for me is that like I was very Catholic like growing up. Like I went to confession every Saturday, I went to mass every Sunday. Even through college, like I mean, rarely would I miss like a Sunday mass, and I did go to confession every so often, not every Saturday, but I was like a good practicing Catholic. And never in my mind would I have thought I had to separate my faith and my belief in God with like the spiritual side of me that could commune with, my grandmother who had passed or who could just know events before they happened. Because it was to me, it was just all one, like it was just part of me. And it never felt evil or bad because it just was part of who I was, just like spirituality and like my belief in God was part of who I am. Um, so I guess like it's sometimes tricky for me to see from the point of view where the it's like can't two what is it? What is that saying? Like can't two of the different things be the same thing or can't two of the same things? What is the saying? Like can it be
True.
yes, two things can be true or something like that?
Yep.
Um to me, it's like, why can't it be? This is an experience that I'm having. It's real for me. And when I'm giving messages to somebody who I don't know and like the messages are correct, um, how is that happening other than like there is something pure being run through me through this channel, through this vessel, and um I'm able to just connect that way. Like just as though somebody would, say their prayers at night and connect to God. It's another way of connecting to a higher frequency. And in the same breath, like there are lower frequencies. There are those like low vibrational things and you have to be really careful. Like I always tell my friends like I would never ever have a Ouija board in my house because I think that's inviting something is of a lower vibration. I don't think it's necessarily like the devil, but I think that there are lower vibrational energies that can come through and be attracted to that. Um Anytime I'm doing a session, be it Reiki or reading or the Akashic records, I always set sacred space first and I set that intention. And another word for intention could be seen as prayer. I'm opening myself up and calling in my angels and that protective white light energy. Um, so I do think like there is a little element of like negative energy in the world. There's a balance between good and evil and light and dark. You have to have like that kind of balance. And there are ways and things that you can do to protect yourself. I know you use crystals a lot, so that you're not inviting in that kind of lower vibrational energy.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think they're like everything is vibration, like you said.
Mhm.
So I do believe that there are lower vibrational entities and people out there. And then I think there are those that are higher vibrational, and there are a lot of different like rituals or traditions that you could establish for yourself that would help protect you. And I do really like to use crystals, but I'll also use what could be perceived as spell work or witchcraft. I'll use like a blend of different herbs and um yeah, I think it's interesting, right? We all have our own lived experience, but um one of the things you mentioned is like having the prayer intention,
Mhm.
spells, manifestation, mantras, like they're
Yeah.
legitimately all the same thing. It's like Baskin Robbins, it's just 51 different flavors of the same thing.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
okay, well, before we wrap up today, what would you share as one of your recommended resources to open up people's minds if you've got one? A
Whoa.
book or a YouTube video or something that helped you become more open?
I need to think of what I cannot think of. You read it too, so maybe you remember the book about Mary Magdalene. That one really like opened up my
Mary Magdalene
brain.
Revealed.
Yes, that
Yeah.
one was really good. I'm reading one right. Hopefully you can't hear my dog too. He's going insane. There must be like a dog pooping in our yard. So sorry if you're hearing like that background noise. I'm reading right now. It's called Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, I think, and I can share the exact title. Mind blown. And she talks about like how they used like herbs and stuff for healing way back when. And obviously, like we talked before, like Journey of Souls was a big one, many lives, many masters. All of those books are great resources if you're interested in kind of the other side of spirituality. So like to me, like religion and spirituality, like yes, like there's a commonality, but you can't group everything into religion. So if you're interested in kind of opening up your awareness to the other side of spirituality, not necessarily religion, those are some of my favorite books that I always recommend to people.
I love it. Journey of Souls would definitely be at the top of my list, along with a whole host of others. But if you want to hear more about my spiritual awakening journey, I'll just point you over to my TikTok page, Kelly Postor Coaching. Just look for the ones that are labeled my spiritual journey or my spiritual awakening, and I talk about some of the different stories in different parts. And you can find out more there. And if you're interested in finding out any more or suggesting a topic, feel free to reach out to Christy or me via DMs on our social media platforms, or you can email us at cosmicbesties@gmail.com.
Yeah, and I think like the most important thing is just to keep an open mind. Um, we wouldn't share anything that is like negative. Like that's just not our vibe. Um, and there's nothing to fear, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's all good. There's I put blocks up when I give readings so nothing negative can come in, and I'm sure Kelly does something similar too. Um, so yeah, don't be afraid and maybe open up your mind a little bit more to the idea that there's more to just um what the creator is, because once you kind of figure out how to tap into that energy, ooh, like it will give you full body chills. Like it can be so healing and be um a really beautiful facet to kind of your healing journey, in my opinion.
I love it. All right, thanks, and we hope to see you again soon.